verses 19 through 24. Lamentations 3:19 through 24. It reads, "Remember my affliction and my wandering, the wormwood and bitterness. Surely my soul remembers, and is bowed down within me. This I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. The Lord's loving kindness indeed never cease, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I have hope in him." That was Lamentations 3:19 through 24.
Well, it's good to be together on Christmas. We were trying to figure out the math for how often that happens, and I think Sarah can explain it. I don't know. Maybe it's on. But it's good to be with everybody. I appreciate Brent leading that song and remind us it's an everyday occurrence for us. I think everybody likes Christmas. I don't know of many people who are not happy that it's here. There might be some people who don't like it very much, but I know some of them like it because they get overtime and things like that. There's certain aspects of having vacation and work and things like that. I think people like the idea of a little bit of extra kindness. You kind of get that from people. I have a theory is that it gets closer to Christmas in the mall and the shopping. That kind of gets set aside sometimes, and the kindness towards each other. If you're going after the same doll, I don't know. It could be that way. I think people like the idea of Jesus, and people are drawn to that. They have at least a vague idea of maybe who he is and what he accomplished, and I think people are kind of drawn to that. I know it's about family. I know it's nice to just kind of stop the craziness and spend some time together. I hope you get to do that. You get to possibly give some gifts and get some gifts, and you have great food. My uncle had a Christmas tradition. He had 3 daughters, and so ended up with 3 sons-in-law, and they at Christmas would sit in the living room, and he had a BB gun. It was a pistol, and they would take turns shooting ornaments off the tree. So I haven't talked to Sarah about it, but I'm thinking about starting that next year for our family. I was getting ready, to talk to you. Of course, this is kind of at least in the back of everybody's mind, and I was trying to think of why I have good memories of Christmas. There were different memories, I'm sure, like you have, and I think one of the reasons I really enjoyed Christmas, especially when I was little, it was one of the few times in my life that I looked forward to getting up in the morning. And it's kind of funny that as you get older, that kind of goes away. You grew up and become this person that in most cases, it's like, oh no, it's morning. And it becomes kind of a bad thing. But I knew when I was little, sometimes it'd be, Christmas morning or something like that. I knew great things were waiting. And even if I didn't get everything I wanted, a lot of times I'd get things that I wished I'd wanted. And it was just different, waking up knowing that someone had been arranging things for me, and that it was going to be a good day. And there was love and family and gratitude all captured in that first moment when you first wake up. It's kind of hard to describe. I bet you can think of maybe when you're little, or maybe even another time of the year where you woke up and said, this is going to be a good day. And I don't think it happens as often in our lives sometimes as we grow up, because the world kind of stomps on you, and a lot of times people will do things the day before, and morning is something that they don't want to face at all. Regardless, Christmas or not, everyone has a memory of waking up and being happy about it. And I got to thinking that it's kind of sad that that's not typically the case for most of us, where you wake up and know that good things are at hand. If you go to Genesis 1, I wanted to start with this briefly. It seems kind of obvious. We're going to look at the very, very first morning. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Kind of Christmas morning, but also just mornings in general. And God invented them. He came up with the idea of the whole concept of a morning. And keep in mind, he could have done anything that he wanted, but here's what he did. Genesis 1, starting at verse 3, then God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And here was evening, and there was morning one day. So he separated the light from the darkness. That's one of the first things that he did. But I find it interesting, he didn't end the darkness. You could have just left the lights on, so to speak, but he he ended the day. And so what he does is, I find this pretty worth noticing. Instead of ending the darkness, he ended the darkness over and over. And that's what's called morning. He invented morning. It's the end of darkness, and God intended it to be a good thing. I like Psalm 65:8. If you look over there, Psalm 65, verse 8. Part of this says, "You make the dawn and the sunset shout for joy." At least in his mind, it was a very good thing. Every day, of course, the earth is turning, but the sun is coming up. And I think there's a little bit of optimism in all of us for that. But when we hear the alarm, we typically don't shout for joy. We don't even murmur for joy. Sometimes we're just kind of crawling our way back towards the day. But it's a good thing. The sun is up, and there are possibilities. And that's especially true if you're with God. Keep in mind, being associated with God is being associated with the one who created the very idea of morning, that this cycle of these days would happen time and time again. He ends the darkness every morning. And God is just as reliable as the sunrise. We kind of take it for granted that the sun is up. I believe, I don't know if as we get older too, we see less sunsets and sunrises. Maybe the novelty wears off. We're kind of inside all the time in our comfortable places. I don't know if you have a relative that annoys you and says, "Come and look at the sunset," and then we appreciate it once we're out there. But we're kind of disconnected from those things a lot of times, and if anything, we complain about it blinding us on the way to work. It's kind of in the way. But it's a reminder when that sun comes up that God is just as reliable. Every day, he's ready, and he's on the job. Here's Psalm 130. The 130th Psalm. I'm going to read verse 6. So I think one of the reasons the sun is coming up is kind of this daily reminder that he is just, if not more, reliable. "My soul waits for the Lord more than the watchman for the morning. Indeed, more than the watchman for the morning." The watchmen, of course, kind of guarding the walls, and they're eager for morning to show up because it's a lot easier to guard things when the sun would come up. So waiting on the Lord is a lot like waiting for the sunrise, and it's coming. Always has shown up. The big difference between God and the sun is the sun doesn't love you. God does. More than anyone I know that you can think right now of people in your life who deeply love you, would do anything for you. He loves you more than that, and I think we forget that. And he is ready to do something about it. The sunrise is an opportunity to turn to God. Look at Psalm 119. So we're looking at a few verses here where there's this idea that now that it's morning, it's not just time to get up and go to work and do our routines. There's something else going on here. Here's Psalm 119, 147. So it's the 147th verse of Psalm 119. This is how David puts it. He says, "I rise before dawn and cry for help. I wait for your words." So it's interesting. He's waiting for the sun to come up, and he's also with this anticipation of God being involved. Prayer, unfortunately, is often treated as a last-ditch effort of desperation. Becomes the last thing we try after we've attempted everything else. But prayer is associated with the morning for a very important reason. I really like this verse, Psalm 5. This is the 5th Psalm. I'm going to read the first 3 verses. This reminds me to have the right perspective about prayer. It's almost, it's easy to think, well, I don't have time to pray in the morning. It's almost like, well, how could you not have time if you understand fully what it is? Here's Psalm 5:1. "Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my groaning. Heed the sound of my cry for help, my King and my God. For to you I pray." And here it is. "In the morning, O Lord, you will hear my voice. In the morning, I will order my prayer in you and eagerly watch." I really like that. He didn't just pray. His prayers were followed by something very important. They were followed by expectation. He would pray, and then he'd keep his eyes peeled. What's beautiful about God's answers to prayers is they're typically not what we expect or how they might come about. But he does answer prayers. And David didn't wait until things were bad. He'd get up in the morning. What a perfect time to do that. You've got a brand new day, the very sun that God created. And you face the day, and he prayed to God, and he knew that God was on the job. Here's a couple other thoughts. I think God designed the morning to mean something, and he took it to a spiritual level. We're going to look at Matthew 4. I think it's worth pointing out that when he sent his son, when he was born, which a lot of people are thinking about lately, he compared Jesus' arrival to something that we see every day. He compared the birth of Jesus to the sunrise. I don't know if you ever caught this before. Matthew 4:16. He's describing it's like the whole world was in this perpetual night, and finally, the sun is going to rise. Matthew 4:16. The people who were sitting in darkness saw a great light, and those who were sitting in the land and shadow of death, upon them a light dawned. It's almost like people who'd been born into a world where it had always been dark, and then the sun rose. Until that sunrise happens in your life, you are sitting in the land of death. It's described as sitting in the shadow of death. And then Luke 1, similar idea, description of Jesus as well when he's born. Here's Luke 1, verse 78. Luke 1:78. Because of the tender mercy of our God, with which the sunrise from on high will visit us, to shine upon those who sit in darkness and the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. It was like a sunrise. Jesus was kind of like the incarnation of morning. He was the end of the night. Everything about him was like a good morning, one of the good ones. And when he died, he faced the darkest darkness. Here's Matthew 16, verse 2. It describes that he walked out of the spiritual night when the sun was rising. I don't think it's a coincidence that God raised Jesus from the dead when the sun was coming up. He did it on purpose. The light has hit the horizon, and now that the light is here, the light has returned. When Jesus returned to heaven, he left behind the Bible, of course, his word to guide us. And it is a sunrise in book form. If you look at 2 Peter 1:19, that's how it's described. What you carry around, what you are very familiar with and know as the Bible, is kind of a portable sunrise. That's what it is. Here's 2 Peter 1:19. So we have the prophetic word made more sure, to which you do well to pay attention, as to a lamp shining in a dark place until the day dawns and the morning star arises in your hearts. It's kind of like it can cause a spiritual sunrise for you the more you're interacting with it. Here's one more thing about morning, and I might argue this might be one of the best things about the fact that more than likely tomorrow you're going to get another one of these. People, I find it interesting that people are drawn to the idea of reincarnation because they love the idea of starting over. Say, wouldn't it be great if you could just kind of clean the slate and start it all over, get a whole new life again? In reality, you don't have to come back in another form, but you do get to start over. All you have to do is get up. Getting up in the morning means something incredibly profound. You've been given another chance. You've been given another opportunity. And it's very important not to squander that. Even though you and I have sinned, even though we have defied God on some level, he is eager for things to get better for you. Psalm 30, verse 5. Notice this is described in terms of the morning. Psalm 30, verse 5. This tells us a lot about him. For his anger is but for a moment. His favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may last for the night, but a shout of joy comes in the morning. This renewal is only available to those who belong to him. Here's Malachi 4:2, last book of the Old Testament. Near the end of that last book, Malachi chapter 4, verse 2. It's kind of important to know that in order to have what I'm talking about, you have to have God. If I disconnect myself from him, it's just darkness for me. But if I have him, I have this sunrise idea. In fact, it's kind of described in terms that we're probably not that familiar with, but it says Malachi 4, verse 2, but for you who fear my name, and that means doing what he says, for those of you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings, and you will go forth and skip about like calves from the stall. I've never seen a calf skipping around. I hear it's pretty funny because of how happy they look. But the point is, of course, even though I can't physically skip around anymore, your soul can still feel like that. That's kind of a nice idea. To be excited about the day, about what could happen next, because that's what's interesting about each day. There's no way to fully predict it. Anything could happen. No matter what happened yesterday or last month or last year, God is ready to give you some light. He is anxious for you to recover. Isaiah 58, verse 8. Isaiah 58, verse 8. And notice these passages about getting up in the morning. It's him anxiously standing nearby, so eager to make things better for you. Isaiah 58, verse 8. Then your light will break out like the dawn, and your recovery will speedily spring forth, and your righteousness will go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. In other words, he's got your back. In the middle of the Bible, there's a very, very dark book, and I think it's very significant that in the middle of this dark book, in the middle of the Bible, is a very bright light. Chance read this for us earlier. It's Lamentations, if you want to look this up. It's Isaiah, Jeremiah, and then Lamentations, and the very title should jump out at us. It means a passionate expression of grief. That's what the book title means. But in chapter 3, in this book about tears, about darkness, is a passage of hope. And it's all about tomorrow morning. Here's Lamentations 3. I'm going to start reading verse 19. Remember my affliction and my wandering, the wormwood and bitterness. Surely my soul remembers and is bowed down within me. We've probably had many days like that. This I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. The Lord's loving kindnesses indeed never cease, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I have hope in him. Tomorrow morning isn't Christmas morning, but it could be great. It could be really great. God is ready to have compassion. He's ready to bless you and eager for your recovery. The physical sunrise is probably going to happen, chances are. Keep in mind, each sunrise that does happen increases the chance that it's the last one. So we are on a time limit, but the spiritual sunrise, that's up to you. You can wake up and be the same person and continue on in darkness, maybe kind of a shadowy life, still kind of trudging through the things that you know should go, the things that need to change, or you could start over. God isn't going to drag you out of the darkness. You can stay comfortable in your sin. We have that choice. You can sleep your life away spiritually. You can keep your soul kind of tucked in and comfortably doomed. That is an option. But God separated light from the darkness for a reason, and it's so you could get out of it, so you could get out of the darkness. Romans 13:12 says, the night is almost gone, and the day is near. Therefore, let us lay aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. He provides the light, but it's up to us to get up and to put it on. And we do this by putting on Jesus. Galatians 3:27 says, for all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. That's how you put him on. That's how you put on this light. I hope this is a great morning for you. I hope that it's just the beginning, that it's going to lead to a really good day. Spend time with family, maybe some downtime, maybe some time to kind of take a breather and look at your life. But it's kind of exciting to consider the possibility things could be even better. As good as it was when you were little. Back when you believed there were great things waiting for you. It can still be like that, and I believe even better. Even if we don't get everything that we want, we'll get things that we wished we wanted. Wouldn't that be something to not just wake up, but to wake up and be happy about it, knowing that someone is arranging things? Someone is ready to give you another chance? But it's really up to you. It's up to me. And here we are. It's Christmas morning, and it's fun to be together on this time. But I encourage you to make a choice. We're going to be singing together, and I encourage you to make some sort of choice before you leave to make this morning great, and then to make the decision that will make every morning great. Pray you'll think about this while we stand together and sing.
I care not today what tomorrow may bring, if shadow or sunshine.